Welcome back. Of course, we have the former Executive Director, Center for Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity, Dr. Umar Yakubu. Doctor, welcome to the program. Hello?
Thank you.
Yes, good evening. Of course, we struggle to have you there Zoom because of the network connectivity. Before you join, I read the basis of pleading for your indulgence to be part of the program to discuss the Mambila power project crisis. And what I read was that former presidents Olusegun Obasanjo and Muhammadu Buhari are, as we speak, in Paris to actually give their own side of the crisis, stroke, the ground fraud in the power sector. And we hope you will help us put context to some of these issues. But before I start with the first question, I want to read some very important stories, which are our tidbits for the day. Yes. The first is that the Nigeria Communication Commission has approved the request of telecommunications companies to raise tariff. According to Ruben Moka, spokesman of the commission, the approval was granted in pursuant to its power under Section 108 of the Nigerian Communications Act 2003, NCA, to regulate and approve tariff rates and charges by telecommunication operators. He said the telcos made the request as a result of prevailing market conditions. And of course, Doctor, I will start with this. What is your take on this approval for telcos to hike tariff?
Well, my position is yes, regulatory agencies like to flout the law when they want to do something. So, citing their powers, we all know their powers. They have the power to increase tariffs, the telcos to increase their tariffs. That is not a problem. But what they need to look at is to look at the reality of the economy. Everybody should understand that they are affected by the devaluation of the naira caused by the floating of our currency by Mr. President last year. And that is what is pushing all the costs of these things because they mainly outsource most of their services in US dollars. And that is posing a problem. And that same floating of the naira and the devaluation of the currency is affecting every business that has an external component to it. So that needs to be addressed. So, in as much as that we can't blame them totally for increasing the tariff, there has to be a way the government has to see how we can have means of reducing or strengthening the naira so that all these shocks will not be experiencing them every time. Unfortunately, in the 2025 budget, we already pegged it at about 1,500. It's a dollar not coming down, or the naira is not improving in the short term. So we have to put pressure more on reducing waste in government so that our spending, our unnecessary spending, will be reduced so that we can strengthen the naira. But more particularly, we need to produce more so that we export more and import less.
Now, about the increase. Before today, speculations out there were that the operators wanted to hike the tariff by almost 200%. But of course, I was about coming into the studio when this story broke. I didn't read the full details, but it is within the range of 50 and 60%. Is that a fair deal when you compare the proposed increase to prices of other things out there, maybe diesel and all that?
Yeah, mathematically it could be fair because your naira also about 500 and something. Now is times 3, more than times 3. It's at 168. So what they're simply doing is reflecting the dollar rate to put the argument, and it will make sense because if we're buying, so they are making money in naira. We all buy our cards, our data in naira, so they have to convert to dollar. So this is a macroeconomic problem, not about the telcos only. If you want to solve the problem, go and peg that our naira to a more realistic rate where it will not affect inflation of such services like the telcos. That is just the way to solve the problem. If not, if the naira continues depreciating, they will continue to reflect that cost differential and will continue to have the problem. The same thing with diesel. That's why we're buying petrol today at 1,000 naira plus. And it's going to continue happening, even though you saw that Hotel refinery came on board, other refineries are smoothly producing now, but the price has not really come down. What we expected is because of that foreign exchange rate. So solving one problem is going to have a good effect on so many things: inflation, reduction in cost of services, reduction in cost of prices of goods, and so many other things. That's what we need to focus on: how to make the naira to the dollar, if possible, back to where they met it in 2020.
I stumbled on an information somewhere that the service providers, MTN, Glo, Airtel, and what have you, that every month, collectively, they consume over 40 million liters of diesel to power their infrastructure. And conservatively, if you put maybe at a liter of diesel at 1,200 or thereabout, that gives you almost 48 billion on diesel. Now, do you think if the infrastructure in terms of maybe electricity, because assuming electricity is working and is everywhere, they will not spend this 48 billion on diesel, right? Now, what do you think government must do to make this sector and many other sectors attractive, profitable, and also user-friendly? Because Nigerians are the ones actually paying the price. All of this will now be shifted to Nigerians.
That's a very valid question. And apart from the cost on diesel, they are probably spending more than that on security, because this is probably the only country where the investor, when he brings his equipment, has to secure the equipment. They are stealing their equipment. I don't want to sound like I'm speaking for them, but they are stealing their equipment. When they buy the diesel, they have to get security to even secure the generator or stealing of parts. So what they simply do as businessmen is just to pass the cost to the consumer. And that's what they've been doing. So sometimes government needs to understand that there are cheaper ways of improving governance. Like now, if you simply, not that it's simple, but if you simply provide security, all these problems would be reduced in terms of billions of dollars. Imagine where the base stations we have in Nigeria, I'm sure that in their towns.
Sorry.
Hello?
Yes, I'm with you, doctor. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, imagine where as a company you don't have to provide security for your own base station, something in other countries that you don't even need to think about that. Another country, they don't even need to think about diesel. You would simply be powered and or think of other alternative solutions. Government might even give them a subsidy. So these are the things that government needs to do. Security is one, very important. Two, they are even charging them, every state charges them for right of way. There are different rates. I don't know whether it's a flat rate or different rates. But for laying their cable, they charge them. And thirdly, there's a lot of vandalism. Like right now in Abuja, for a few days, the whole central area did not have lights. So imagine the level of investment of the investor now in electrical cables, and where, because you have not provided security, or the agency responsible for doing that are even the citizens to monitor, not do their work, and this has. So these are the costs that all Nigerians are paying due to the reduction in the provision of security.
And finally on this, but the biggest elephant in delivery. Nigerians, whether they like it or not, they would pay, because communication is now life wire. Every other person, has one line or the other. But what measures do you think NCC, which is the regulator, must put in place to now put airing service providers online, because many of them, you can see, they don't care. You know, allegations of stealing data, allegations of drop calls, and all that. What do you think NCC should do so that ultimately it will be a win-win situation between Nigerians and the telcos?
NCC, like every regulator, needs to enhance for the sake and benefit of Nigerians. That is clear. So if Nigerians are complaining, yeah, the NCC should take charge. But let's be fair to the NCC in terms of what they are doing. This was a new industry that came on board around 2000, 2009. So it was new industry. You know, we're having several players, several dynamics, different technologies. So I think in that area we're relatively done well. About drop calls, about data, about all these challenges. But relatively, comparatively, we have done well. And most of the problems challenging the communication sector is not within the communication sector to resolve. Like the security issue we talked about, there's little or nothing they can do about it. Like when the states are overcharging them, it's a political solution, you know, where the president and governor needs to come in and help them. On their tariffs, it's also a political decision whether the finance minister will reduce tariffs because of what they're spending on diesel and other things and provision of security. So these are broad macro political solutions that we need to do so that they will enhance their services. But if you are trying to operate a freelance economy, then you simply transfer everything to the consumer.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Umar Yakubu. Now, subject of the day, you know, examining the alleged breach of contract suit against Nigeria, of course, by Sunrise, led by Leno Adesanya. He's looking for 2.3 billion in form of compensation because he said the federal government of Nigeria defaulted in the contract for the construction of the Mambila power project. This Mambila has been a serious dream in Nigeria. The conception was 1972, almost 53 years ago, and here we are. Do you think Leno deserves any compensation from Nigeria?
Well, this is a broad topic. If I knew you were asking me this question, I would have told you to invite a certain Mr. Balasanga. He is the former Attorney General of Adamawa State. That prosecutor, the lead prosecutor, amongst other people, the FCC staff. Now, prosecuted the P&ID case. Now, this P&ID case that I'm about to explain is similar to this Mambila you're talking about. And the problem stems from when we have the Federal Minister of Justice that feels in its duty to scrutinize every single project that has an international component. When the Minister of Justice will sit down with the Ministry of Finance and the concerned NDA before you enter into any agreement. And when you bring in the civil society, the media, it's pollution. Because sometimes the government people collide with our foreign partners where they have not delivered any infrastructure, they have not carried out any project. But because they have entered into a legal agreement, the Minister of Justice did not do the duty or did not involve foreign affairs ministry and other parties and make it open, or it should be a problem if you are entering into an agreement with the country. So we are not buying weapons or anything, so it should be the problem. So by the time it happens, they take the arbitration outside the country. Let's say in the UK, where they know they can enforce them, sometimes even tie your national asset, that same deal. Then before you know it, knowing us as a developing country will default in one area or the other. Once you default, they'll activate that clause and start asking for the money. And when the corruption comes in now, they have not spent 2.3 billion while they're asking for 2.3 billion for it. So it's just a negotiation tactic where you now ask for 2.3 billion. Later on, some criminal elements now will enter and now reduce it to say, let's say 500 million, let's settle. And that's what happened even in the last government. There's one company, I can't remember their name, they will settle about $500 million. They have not brought a kobo to Nigeria based on similar fraudulent schemes that happened, not done their work, and have colluded. They have actually colluded serving the country, and where in the long run you have the people. Luckily, the P&ID case, led by the Mr. Balasanga I told you about, wonderful team members, under the former chairmanship of 9 billion or 10 billion. I can't remember the amount. No, Nigeria. So separate cases like this, there are so many in the Ministry of Justice, and we have not heard the current Minister of Justice calling up a committee or something to review all this kind of fraudulent agreements we have entered. So Nigeria has signed contract with. And even if he has done so, it's not in the public domain, so that we scrutinize and ensure that these things do not happen. Because if these things are open, we do not have this headline of any arbitration. Where is the power?
A big problem. The question, where is the power? But are you surprised that two former heads of state are going to stand in witness box? Of course, in court they may be sitting, since it's an arbitration panel, not necessarily witness box in true sense of it. But are you surprised, or you think it was a bold decision by Obasanjo and Buhari to travel all the way from Nigeria to Paris in order to now give their own side of the story? I can't remember the last time, former or serving head of state or president in Nigeria now took such a decision.
Yeah, I'm not aware that they have traveled, but I'll take your word for it. They have traveled, they are former presidents, so they have to be patriotic to the country. Coincidentally, they are soldiers, so they do, talk about patriotism and loyalty to the country. So they must be doing their best to save the country. But as you are aware, there are accusations or allegations under President Obasanjo, so-called $16 billion was spent on power. But the megawatts did not really increase. Similar amounts, even though nobody even knows how much was spent, similarly under President Buhari, power did not really increase. So maybe that's the angle I'll prefer to look at, to know whether they have gone to as witnesses of that evidence. That's patriotism, and we should. But what they should be held accountable for, we ask questions, is so much investment has gone into giving their tenants, other tenants. How much power have we generated? Well, not generated. So many challenges in improving our supply. Yeah.
Yes, Umar, your background is on fiscal transparency and public integrity. When you look at the height of this problem, it was at the twilight of the Obasanjo administration when his minister, of course, Olu Ogunloye, signed that contract without the consent of the president, without recourse to the Federal Executive Council. And they are now actually in boxing ring, he and Obasanjo, back home here. Why do you think some ministers appear to be superhumans of sorts, to have that guts, even when your president said you shouldn't commit your country to such a monumental litigation or a problem? But a minister will say, okay, we'll go all out, and then he went and signed that problem.
Okay, like I've always told you, sir, look at this thing from a public integrity. How do you have a system, any system, where a contract of this magnitude can be signed, agreed upon, with that, and the details have fraudulent elements? What kind of system is that? So what we're always advocating for, no individuals or anything, is strong systems where something cannot happen. These are preventive measures. If you use a certain type of quality of roofing, there is no way your house can be. That's an analogy I'm watching. Now, when you are given the power to a minister to enter into a contract with a foreign party of an amount of this magnitude, and it has gone through, then the solution lies in interrogating that system. Not that we'll be talking about this kind of, this has come to the fore because something bad has happened. How many of such have happened that we're not aware of in the media? It's a society that we will not be aware of. So it's to continue advocating for strengthening the system that such things just shouldn't happen. And that is what usually happens. Full fiscal transparency. Nigeria's money is for all Nigerians. Everything should be in the public domain, proactively, not invoking Freedom of Information Act. On this main bill, and I have even reminded me, there's a time a year, about 2 years ago, in our center, got several requests on data on this Mambila project. They have, the Ministry of Justice has not responded, Ministry of Finance has not responded, and I think Central Bank too has not responded. All of them were asking them, and payments were made. Towards the tail end of the Buhari era, payments were made, but they have not disclosed it today. What were the payments made for? What was settled? If there was any settlement, Nigerians want to know. And other civil society too have requested for that. So what I'm just saying in a nutshell, let us have a threshold of things that just cannot happen. Because especially this is not a security issue, so you're not buying weapons so that it must not be easy. This is a power-related issue. Everything concerning governance and public expenditure should be in the public domain, so you don't have these issues ever again. So that is more of what I think we should do.
All right, finally on this, you know, the case, as I said, between Obasanjo and Ogunloye, his minister, is clear in the open there. But for Buhari, questions are being asked. You know, when he came, one of the major promises he made to Nigerians, especially the North, his constituency, was to rebuild the Mambila power project. But from what we gathered, you know, it was at the point of signing the contract with the Chinese company and all that, then this issue of litigation came up, that there was contractual agreement, and that if he can sign the out-of-court settlement in the form of compensation, now they will hands off and then he will continue. But he refused to sign it. Do you think he will come back unscattered from Paris? The points he will give maybe will convince Northerners that, okay, it is part of his transparent nature or whatever that he refused to sign, and that was what informed the failure of the Mambila Power Project.
Well, I think you have to check your facts again, but I think towards the tail end, there was some form of agreement and there was some payments made. You need to check. Somebody, I think Premium Times or so, I'm not sure, reported that actually payments were made to settle this things out of court. But like I said, I need to check. Sure. Secondly, what did Mambila do? What infrastructure have they provided in terms of power? Nigeria to warrant whatever money they are asking. So until we resolve this problem, well, maybe to move forward, like you said, the Chinese now want to take over, we need to go and settle. Maybe it might make sense to lose millions of dollars for doing nothing. But the way to solve this problem is if there are elements of fraud, which if you really investigate, you find out there are elements of fraud where there was connivance by government officials with those foreign companies, then you prosecute them for fraud. And if you are prosecuting them for fraud, then the whole issue about being compensated will be null and void. It will not come on any reasonable judge will stand at that case. And that's what was used for the P&ID. That Nigeria did not pay a kobo to anybody or to any fraudulent company. So the question is, why is this government not deploying that same P&ID tactic to all these kind of fraudulent schemes flying everywhere? So simple, because somehow you have very good investigators of the EFCC license. It's payments to government officials. I'm telling you, that's the usual trend when you see these kind of things, public sector involvement. And once you see that, you establish a case and take it to the London court, and I'm telling you, you could succeed and save Nigeria the embarrassment.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Umar Yakubu, former Executive Director, Center for Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity, for coming onto the program.
Am I former?
All right, and viewers will take a short break. When we return, the second part of the conversation commences. Don't go away.